I appreciate so much the determined efforts of Mr. Levin traveling to Colombia, meeting with Colombians, meeting with trade officials, with members of the Senate, both parties, to try to find a way to move this agreement forward, get it approved, and do so in a way that does not jeopardize the rights of workers here or in Colombia. And if I understand, and I had not realized this prior to the hearing, and I want to be sure that I understand it, the official position of the Obama administration and President Obama's administration is that you oppose the inclusion of Mr. Levin's amendment incorporating the action plan for Colombia into this agreement. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Well, I find that very disturbing. You know, the action plan is a little like President Obama's speeches about trade. I always feel better after I hear one. I just don't know whether it's going to change anything. And that's the problem with this Colombia action plan. It sounds good. Let me ask you about it. At present, you mentioned that Colombia, the trade union murder capital of the world, is beginning to do something to change that. And I salute the new government in Colombia, just as Mr. Becerra has, because I think there are some determined people there that want to change that. But as of today, aren't over 90% of the cases of labor union violence, they're still not resulting in any prosecutions at all? If you look at the trade union violence over the last decade, over 90, and you look for convictions, in well over 90% of the cases, you won't find anyone convicted, will you?
Sir, the action plan is a systemic change to deal with
yes, sir. You're
more
not
than a
answering my
decade
question.
of
I understand
crimes.
exactly what the action plan is.
Be,
I like it so much.
the Santos administration is making...
Excuse me, sir. I understand what the action plan is. I'd like to see, though it has some problems, I'd like to see it incorporated into this agreement. My question is, independent of the action plan, if you look at the complaints about labor union violence and specifically murders in the country, isn't it correct that in less than 10% of the cases, have there been any convictions?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, and that's the problem. And even though you have people of goodwill who are in positions of leadership now, they haven't been in leadership for very long. And we don't know whether they will be able to sustain this effort, which I believe the administration in good faith supports, and we want to see effective action taken here to be sure that we don't go backwards again, because we haven't come very much forward and for very long. It's not been a very sustained effort. We have a tremendous backlog of cases from the system of impunity, and I'm not sure whether this action plan really gets to all of that backlog. We have concern about the continued paramilitary successor groups and about how they continue to threaten people within the labor movement. As Mr. Pascrell has pointed out, this is directly interrelated to what happens to workers in this country. Because if people are intimidated, if they are murdered, harassed, and harmed because they choose to join with other workers to achieve decent working standards in Colombia, that has an impact on workers here. And it's part of what we had been told and what so many of us had hoped was a new trade policy under this administration that wouldn't measure the gains that we make strictly on how many tons of goods went from one country to another. That's an important indice, but would look to see how workers and the environment are treated. And when you fail to include even something as modest as Mr. Levin's agreement, compromise on top of compromise upon top of compromise, in an effort to get something everyone could agree on, when you won't even include that baseline, it suggests that trade policy is more talk than action.